When Sophie finally stepped forward after years of unwavering loyalty to the crown, nobody could have predicted what she was prepared to share. Celebrated for her discretion and her uniquely close relationship with Queen Elizabeth, Sophie is now reported to have spoken about the late Queen's final private correspondence and its startling reference to Camilla. What began as quiet whispers has since grown into a full-blown conversation as fresh details continue to surface from within palace walls. But what exactly did Sophie say? And why has it reopened one of the most delicate chapters in royal history? So here's something to think about. Were Queen Elizabeth's final written words about Camilla a gesture of support, or did they carry a deeper, unspoken warning? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more royal stories like this one, make sure you're subscribed.
Their plans for the royal cellars.
Sophie breaks her silence. For more than 2 decades, Sophie has been regarded as one of the most reserved and dependable figures within the royal household. She deliberately kept a low profile, steered clear of public controversy, avoided unnecessary headlines, and never inserted herself into open conflicts. While other royals frequently found themselves entangled in media storms, Sophie carved out a quieter path, working steadily and thoughtfully behind the scenes. Among those inside palace circles, she built an enduring reputation built on loyalty, patience, and understated strength. That silence was never seen as absence. It was always understood as a mark of character. Sophie was present for many of the monarchy's most significant moments. She was trusted with sensitive matters and became well known for her ability to keep private affairs exactly that, private. Those who worked alongside her consistently describe someone who absorbs more than she speaks, who chooses her words carefully, and who deeply understands the value of discretion in royal life. Because that trust was earned over so many years, whenever Sophie does speak, people listen. Her words are never thrown away casually. Every statement she makes is understood to carry intention. Her recent comments have been interpreted by observers as touching on deeper threads of royal history, including what may be contained in Queen Elizabeth's final private correspondence, and the question of Camilla's evolving role within the institution. While public interest often orbits these subjects, Sophie's perspective carries something different. It is grounded in years of first-hand observation and lived experience inside the royal world. Her voice, in this context, feels less like opinion and more like quiet testimony. Years of dedicated service, proximity to pivotal moments, and a role woven into the fabric of key royal events have given Sophie an unusually clear view of how the institution truly operates beneath the surface. Even her most carefully measured statements tend to land with weight, read closely by those looking to understand something deeper. Over time, her position has demonstrated that influence within the monarchy is rarely announced. It is cultivated quietly through trust, consistency, and the willingness to remain steady when others cannot. Silence in royal life can carry tremendous authority. Sophie's entire reputation is proof of that. In a rare moment, Sophie came forward to share what Queen Elizabeth had written in her final letter, specifically what it said about Camilla. But what did the Queen choose to put into words, and why of all people was Camilla the subject of that final reflection? Part 2. Inside the Queen's final words. Sophie was clear on one point from the beginning. The Queen's final letter was never designed to generate mystery or invite speculation. It was a private document, written during the closing days of the Queen's life, measured in tone and deliberate in purpose. There was no dramatic flourish, no raw emotion, only a composed sense of duty, the kind that defined the Queen's entire reign. Sophie described it simply as the Queen's way of leaving quiet direction for those who would carry the monarchy forward. She also explained that letters of this nature within royal life are never ordinary correspondence. They are considered private records of deep reflection, crafted with extraordinary care, and shared only with a carefully selected few within the household. In this particular case, Sophie said the letter was not driven by sentiment. It was a final act of guidance, a message aimed at ensuring the monarchy remained grounded, balanced, and prepared for the future. That revelation naturally raised questions. Sophie acknowledged that people have always wondered what Queen Elizabeth's final written words contained and who she believed most needed to receive them. But she was firm in her interpretation. The Queen was not trying to create division. She was reinforcing continuity and a sense of shared responsibility. On the matter of Camilla, she was equally direct. Any references within the letter were not expressions of personal feeling, not approval, not disapproval, but were framed entirely around role and obligation within the institution. Queen Elizabeth, she explained, always approached the monarchy through the lens of service. What mattered was never the individual in isolation, but how that individual contributed to the stability and integrity of the crown. This fits everything we know about how Queen Elizabeth operated throughout her life. Sophie described the letter's tone as controlled and clear. No dramatic revelations, no emotional confessions, just the considered words of a woman shaped by decades of duty. What makes the letter significant in Sophie's account is not what it reveals about personal relationships, but what it reaffirms about values, duty, discipline, respect for tradition, the protection of the institution above individual preference. In the end, Sophie's telling transforms the letter from an object of speculation into something more like a legacy document, not a parting shot, not a hidden confession, a final, quiet reminder of how the Queen had always lived, with steadiness, clarity, and an unshakable commitment to the crown she served until the last day. Part 3. Camilla's public rise. Queen Elizabeth is said to have acknowledged Camilla's dedication to royal duty in that final letter, not in an emotional tone, not with dramatic praise, but in the measured, factual way one might record something important for the record. But how did Camilla reach a point where such acknowledgement was even possible? And does this suggest she had earned a deeper level of acceptance than most people realized? For many years, Camilla's standing within the monarchy grew steadily, moving from a position of controversy towards something far more settled. What had once attracted intense public debate gradually gave way to a calmer, more established presence. She took on greater official responsibilities, appeared consistently at state and ceremonial occasions, and stood dependably beside King Charles as he moved toward the throne. When she was formally recognized as Queen Consort, it marked the completion of a long, complicated journey towards institutional belonging. From the outside, this looked like a clear story of acceptance, a new chapter begun with measured confidence. But within the layered world of the monarchy, acceptance has never been a single thing. Alongside the public titles and ceremonial appearances, there exists a quieter, more personal dimension, the world of private relationships, deep-seated memories, and perspectives shaped over decades. Within that dimension, some accounts suggest that emotional distance and careful adjustment can persist long after a public role appears fully settled. This is the reality of royal life. Institutions built on tradition tend to operate on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, everything appears ordered, dignified, and unified. Below that surface, personal histories are far more complex, shaped by choices, consequences, and experiences that rarely make it into official records. It is within that deeper layer that any final private correspondence from Queen Elizabeth takes on its full significance. Her decision to mention Camilla would not have been casual. Nothing she committed to paper was. Part 4. From Distance to Quiet Acceptance. The relationship between Queen Elizabeth and Camilla has always been more layered than what the public was permitted to see. The image of calm acceptance that defined later years was the product of a long, slow evolution, one that began in a very different place. During the 1990s, the situation surrounding Prince Charles and Camilla generated enormous public controversy. Royal commentators of the era suggested that the Queen was deeply unsettled by the sustained media attention and the emotional turmoil the relationship had introduced. The monarchy was already navigating serious pressure during that period, and this added complexity that could not simply be managed away. Several observers noted that the Queen preferred to maintain deliberate distance from the public debate, prioritizing the protection of the institution's image over personal engagement with the situation. But time has a way of shifting perspectives. As the years passed, circumstances evolved. Camilla gradually became more integrated into official royal duties, the tabloid noise began to subside, and her manner, quiet, consistent, and free from obvious drama, seemed to change the atmosphere around her. It has been suggested that the Queen, while never erasing the memory of earlier difficulties, came to recognize the stability that Camilla brought into Charles's life, and by extension, into the broader functioning of the family. That long, slow arc from resistance to eventual recognition is precisely why any reference to Camilla in the Queen's final private letter carries so much resonance. It does not suggest that the Queen's feelings were ever simply one thing or another, approval or disapproval, warmth or coldness. It suggests instead that those feelings evolved, shaped gradually by duty, observation, and the ever-present need to protect the monarchy's future. That, perhaps more than anything else, is the most honest portrait of how Queen Elizabeth operated throughout her life. Part 5. The Power of Quiet Loyalty. Sophie has never been someone who reaches for the spotlight. From her earliest days within royal life, she chose a different kind of influence, one not based on visibility, but on reliability. Rather than seeking recognition or inserting herself into public narratives, she focused on the quieter, harder work of earning trust. And over time, that is exactly what she did. Queen Elizabeth placed great value on that kind of steady strength. Sophie became someone the late Queen could depend on, not just for formal duties, but for the less public, more human moments that